So we are here today with Melanie in continuation of our series exploring the world of artificial intelligence, and she's going to talk to us about assignments to help students and faculty use AI. So go ahead and take it away. You can introduce yourself a little bit more, Melanie. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. It's so nice to be here, and thank you all for coming. I've been teaching at Clovis Community College full time since 2008, but I've been teaching for the district since 1991. And predominantly, I've taught English 1A courses. I was even teaching 1A as an adjunct for 16 years, and then included most summers too. So I have a lot of experience teaching writing instruction. And because of that, um, I know what student writing looks like. And when I had an online class in fall of 2022, there were some essays that came in for a couple of different students that I thought, this is weird. This does not sound like they must be paying somebody else to write their essays for them. This just sounds so bizarre. It was so vague, and yet there was nothing grammatically correct about it. And then I happened to, over Christmas break, find out from a friend's son who was in college who said, "Hey, I've been using this thing called Chat GPT, and it's written all of my essays for me this semester. Ha ha ha. My professor didn't know." And that's when the light went up. Ah, that's what that is. I knew that that was not natural human language. So I immediately signed up for a course on Coursera about how to be a prompt engineer and to learn about it. And then I've been playing with it ever since. And my approach has been to um, teach students how to use it in ethical ways, because it's definitely here to stay. And we're definitely at a hinge point, a turning point here in our society when it comes to the generative AI. So we need to learn how to use it and learn it effectively, learn to use it in ethical ways. So that's how these assignments are kind of built on each other. Conversation is super important. So here is a list of the things I'm going to talk about, a little outline. I started out by having students first use artificial intelligence to as an assignment, and then to reflect. And so we'll just go through each of these here today. And as you see at the end, I will leave some time for question and answers. So I would have the students for a whole week do try to use AI for anything that they could think of: meal planning, scheduling, workout planning, learning about a topic. And then let them know at the beginning that at the end they were going to be writing a reflection about what they saw as strengths, weaknesses, surprises. And it was really fun to read what the students thought. Some were very scared. They admitted that they were afraid to use it. They thought that if they used it, it would be considered cheating. And others found out that as they were using it, it was super helpful for basic life things like planning out their schedule, helping them manage their time better, of course, making some good workouts. One student admitted that already she's addicted to it. She can't make any decisions without first consulting Chat GPT. So that was really insightful. And then that is what started the conversation there in class after everybody had had an experience, because a lot of students at that point really hadn't heard much about it. And there are still students that have not heard much about generative AI. So this makes sure that everybody is aware of it and sees how the tool works and gets a feel for it. So then you can have some conversation. So I think that that's a really important first assignment. And then that's when that's when we have a discussion, a class discussion, where they share what they discovered, the strengths, the surprises, and where they got to openly and freely share, their hesitations about it, share what they've heard other people doing with it. And I think the more information we allow students to hear about it and experience it, I think is super important. And then guided that discussion to, all right, then what would be the ethical ways to use it? Because we can clearly see that it would be, it's very tempting. It would be easy to, and then let them come up with, well, this would be considered cheating. This would definitely be unethical. This would not be fair to do this. And then, just made a list, and then worked on a document ourselves as a class, and agreed on what in our class is ethical use of this. To what extent can we use it and feel confident that we are not going to be, considered cheating? How do we give credit for it? All of that kind of information. So that discussion, and then having them with buy-in about, well, what would be considered appropriate use of it. I also provided them with information about, from other colleges, what they have put as their policies, some charts that show ethical use. And if you want any of that information, I can share that with you as well. So we had that discussion. And then from there, I tricked them one day and I told them, all right, well, maybe I actually did this to start the discussion. I said, if you guys can write essays using ChatGPT and other generative AI, I'm just going to grade your essays using ChatGPT. So I put a test one in and, it gave some pretty good feedback. It was pretty close to what I would say and graded it pretty close. So, all I had to do is just tweak a few little things. How do you guys feel about that? And they didn't like that at all. So once they would feel that that was going on, that kind of opened up the conversation. Thanks for those comments in the chat. I'm just going to check it out, see if there's anything I needed to miss. All right. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. They were afraid to use it. Nobody wants to be accused of cheating. And there's all kinds of myths going around. And there's a lot of stuff even on social media that shows that, students have been expelled because they were accused of using generative AI. And Lori, what's your question?
When you said use it for a week, did some of them even use it for writing?
I don't remember off the top of my head. I just told them to use it for their everyday life and not for school assignments.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good thing to clarify. Thank you for asking about that. Because I told them that we will be using it and I'll teach you how to use it in ways that you won't get in trouble for. So I didn't want anybody getting in trouble before we'd had those kinds of discussions. Great question. Any others? But that really put things into perspective for them when I said that I would grade. I'll just have AI grade for you. And I actually attended a seminar put on by OnCourse, and they had a presenter who had been employed by Hollywood as a publicist and had been teaching in college for a couple of years. And she admitted that she was having AI grade all of her student writing. And people raised the question, well, do you feel like that's ethical? And she's like, well, everybody's doing it. And there was a long discussion about that. And something to keep in mind and that I've warned the students about is if you put something there on generative AI, if you upload your work, know that it now becomes part of that whole base. And so you might want to consider that and maybe not put up your whole assignment. And that's why it would be unethical for us as instructors to upload student essays and have it grade because it's got their whole document. And we didn't get their permission to share that with the whole world. So after we came to an agreement, then I put that ethical use statement on all of their assignments because research has shown that when students see reminders about ethical and academic honesty, it actually impacts their decisions. And then I included, which I think is super important, how to cite AI when they use it within their writing as well as on their references page. And this has been very helpful for students to know that, just like we use sources and we give credit where we got that information from, and it's important to show where the ideas from that source start and end in our paper, that they could use information that, they used from ChatGPT to help them. But what I wanted to make clear is we are not using ChatGPT or any generative AI as considered a credible source. It is a tool. It is not considered a credible source. So we talk about that as well. And we just say, we're just going to be honest here. Anything that you got from AI, that you used from AI, you're going to list all the queries that you put into ChatGPT or whatever system you're using. You're going to list those all on your works cited page so that we know. And whether or not you used it, you're just going to document in what ways you used it, what were the questions that you asked of it, because just like consulting sources, and even if you do or don't use it, we just want to see this is what we came to an agreement about. So we have that ethical use statement on assignments. And now finally, here is our next. A lot of times students have a difficult time figuring out who their audience is when they're writing. And if you know who your audience is, then you're going to be an effective writer. So who is it that needs to know this information? And students have a really difficult time actually trying to imagine who their audience is. So this is a really helpful strategy. And we've done it in class together. And I've actually given them a PowerPoint presentation with different questions that they can put into the AI to query and find out answers. But we start with, prompting the AI generator. From now on, you're to respond as though you were the audience for my argument about, and then they would put in whatever the claim is. And then as you write additional prompts, you then just say, I want you as my audience. You are, in this age group, and you have this much education, and you're from this background, and this is about, what your yearly income is, and then knowing that is identifying my audience. Then what are the needs and interests of this audience related to this topic? What does this audience hold most dear? What do they value the most? What biases might they have that could impact my argument, that blah, 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 blah. And this gives students a whole lot of insight about, wow, I didn't know that my audience didn't know about this. And I didn't know that they need to know that. And I didn't even think about the fact that they might be, unaware of this, or that they might have a prejudice towards this topic in this way. I had a student write in a reflection after this activity that because she's autistic, she has a really difficult time trying to figure out what other people are thinking and where they're coming from. And that she actually is now using AI to help her try to anticipate, what other people need. And she's just never been able to imagine that. And so using the AI as a tool in this way to imagine what the audience is, and have the AI be a pretend audience, and to get some feedback before they write, has been super helpful for them so that they can write in a more meaningful way. You can also use AI as a research assistant. So you can have them, find an interesting angle for their topic. So they might want to write about addiction that's super, super broad. And you can ask, AI, hey, I want to write about addiction. What are some more narrow topics? And it can give them something. It can give them a list of ideas. You can even ask the generator, to give you a list of 20 more narrow topics, and it will. And then from there, they can pick one of those and then just keep refining it. I've had them do, give me 6 common arguments about this topic and 6 creative arguments about this topic. And then we have a discussion about, all right, so if that's a common argument, do you really want your essay to be a common argument, right? Something that's already been said and done before. And the creative arguments can be really, really outlandish. And, do you really want your essay to be about abortion by alien abduction? So you want to, I don't know, it opens up the door for a lot of discussion, some interesting ideas, and can spark some more ideas. But it can give them ideas of what not to write about because it's been overdone, or something that's a little bit too ridiculous. You can also use AI as an editor. And again, this is where I caution students, don't put your whole essay in there, just maybe a sentence or two, or at the most a paragraph. And you can, ask it to do things like, show me how to reduce the wordiness and eliminate repetitiveness in this sentence. So if they got some feedback from me on their last essay, you tend to repeat yourself a lot, or your writing's missing some examples. They can have the generator help them with, where do I need to add some examples? Or can you give me a couple of examples that would work well in this paragraph? And it wouldn't be that they would necessarily copy those, but it might spark some ideas, so then they can come up with their own example and they can modify it. So here's the example. Here's this really long sentence, and students tend to want to write and be long-winded to reach word count. We're talking about, no, let's be concise, and let's have evidence to make our papers longer rather than just a lot of excess words. And besides that, it's a bunch of excess words that AI is most notorious for, and you want to sound like a human. So this is what they originally put in. Here's what that generated, and then you can continue to prompt it. Now, let's get rid of the passive voice, and then now let's get rid of all those prepositional phrases so that the statements can be a lot more clear. And of course, these are skills that we've talked about in class. So then we're just asking the AI generator to apply the things that we've been learning. And now the students have the terminology, the grammar terminology, so then they know what to put in as a prompt rather than just proofread my paper or edit my paper. We're actually asking it as an editor and telling it and directing it to look for these specific things, like make sure that I, I need to start more sentences with subordinating conjunctions, or I need to make sure that I use conjunctive adverbs. Make sure, help me add some of those in. And so that way they're using the terminology from the class and then making sure that they, have something that they can use in their paper. Any questions so far? I know I'm talking really fast. I want to make sure I leave time for us to discuss and answer questions.
I have one.
Yes.
Have you done any of this in an online class, like fully
No.
online?
Nope, I have not done any of this in an online class. I think it would be a nightmare trying to get them to do this, uh, because it just requires a whole lot of explanation. There's a lot of prep work, and it would just be too much to write out, too much for students to read, too long of a video. So that's been, I've just only done this in a face-to-face class.
Yeah, I've thought about doing I have a unit where they're going to be doing research, but not necessarily writing the research project. And I thought I've included, and it's fully online, but maybe include a few assignments using AI.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see.
Yeah, it's just going to require a lot of, a lot of explanation, a lot of laying the groundwork. I think
Yeah.
they need to understand, why we want to use this in ethical ways.
Yeah.
I mean, there've been conversations in my class where, like, well, if everybody's doing it, why does it matter? So, they just want to bypass this whole idea of ethics and what's fair. What's good for me is good for me, and it's only unfair if it hurts me, but if it's not hurting me, it's not unfair. So those are important discussions, I think. Anybody else? Right. And also, I've shown them how to use the AI as a tutor. So I invite them to paste a paragraph into the ChatGPT, for example, and then experiment with writing prompts to generate feedback from it. And of course, make sure that they understand that once they put it in there, that it now becomes part of the system. And I recommend that we do this, well, not recommend, but we do this after we do peer review and after I've given some feedback. So then they can compare what the AI says to what the humans say. So you can ask the AI, you know, evaluate this paragraph for clarity and see what it says, or evaluate this paragraph based on redundancy. How often do I repeat myself? Yes, David.
I'm gonna just back you up on this one because I've actually started using ChatGPT as a tutor for my physics classes because it's actually getting better at doing the physics. Kind of gets it wrong every once in a while, but a vast majority of it's right. And it's really interesting to see the students kind of use this as a tutor. And I've been using prompt engineering to create custom GPTs that sort of start off with this idea that they should do, like I tell the GPT, it's supposed to do learning by inquiry, where it asks them leading questions and tries to step them through the problem solving process for the particular problem and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's really interesting. My question here is that you've made it a couple of times, you said it becomes part of the system's knowledge or brain or whatever. When you have an account with ChatGPT, it gives you the option to turn those flags off. Are you worried that regardless of whether or not those are being selected, that it's still taking that information? Or
So I think that it's just ethical for me to let them know that they lose control over their own stuff. Because who knows how it's going to evolve. So I just think that's the most ethical thing, to let them be aware.
We're less, I guess we're less concerned about that in STEM just because math is math.
Math is math, right, exactly.
The proof is in the pudding of whether or not you can actually do it. Push comes to shove.
Yes, but when it comes to writing,
students focus on like get the answer, get the numerical result for the physics problem, whatever. And it's like, no, you have to show me where it came from.
Right, exactly. And in writing, we're dealing with intellectual property. So yeah, that's a good.
I wondered if it was coming from the IP background. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you for backing me up on that. It is working. It does work really well as a tutor. And again, it encourages them to use the terminology from the class and then to apply it. And they do learn a lot from it. It's a quick, streamlined way of learning. Absolutely. And it's really funny to compare the feedback too. Sometimes they get some really ridiculous feedback. So we have some good laughs about it too. And then we've got addressing AI overuse. So, while we're encouraging them to use it and teaching them how to use it in ethical ways, there is, this possibility that they might overuse it. So, we cannot accuse students of using it. There are no checkers that check for how much something has been relied on for AI. They're not yet accurate. So we can't say, I think you use AI here, but instead you can say something like, I don't know if you used it for this response, but here are the characteristics I'm seeing that are generally used by AI. You're sounding like a robot, and we don't want you to sound like a robot, especially in this day and age. It's really important to use your own voice, and that's particularly important for essay writing, for creative writing, that your voice matters. So here are the things that, I'm seeing, and these are the things that I often see using, the artificial intelligence. And then just a little, for the next time, let's make sure this is what will happen if these specific things in the prompt are not addressed. And it's important in our own prompts to make sure that we're assigning students things that are meaningful, that if it's easy for students to just enter it into a generator and produce the assignment, then why are we assigning it? It needs to take a lot more effort on the part of us as we write assignments, in order to reduce the availability and the ease of using AI to just, have it do the work for them. And then another thing you can do is to invite the student into a discussion, and not to accuse, but just say, right here in the paper, you talked about this. Can you tell me, your understanding of this word? Well, what about the word, this word? Don't say, I've never seen you use this word before. You just ask him, what does this word mean? And then, they're on the spot and like, actually, for that, I actually use ChatGPT. And then we just have a discussion like, that's fine. Just make sure that you then give credit within your paper. And it looks like it might have a question here. All right, so you have heard of some teachers using AI to grade, and you put in some papers, but didn't feel like the feedback was specific enough. If you're a really good prompt engineer, you can get it to be very specific. The output on these things is as good as the input, and the students are getting really, really good at inputting and having it refine what they're looking for, which is a skill in and of itself too. So we also talk about that, how, refining what you're asking it to do is also a critical thinking skill.
Yeah, I've gone to some workshops where teachers say that they are using it and checking it. And so I was playing with it last semester, the semester before, and even with the rubric, I still it just felt very generic. And I did put in a prompt, like, give me 2 good things and 2 things that need to be whatever, and some other stuff. And I would need to play with it more, but then I also felt a little guilty. But I can see it. Occasionally I'll get an essay with that I don't really know what to do with. So I could see it maybe to get some ideas, but I don't know. I kind of feel like
Yeah.
I need to do my own grading.
Right. Yeah. And again, I would just be careful about uploading, a student's whole essay there, because that just feels unethical to me. Yeah. And then for you as teachers, you can have it make you a PowerPoint slides. It can make you essay prompts. And when I do that, when I use an AI generator to make a PowerPoint slide, or to, start a prompt for an essay, I include the citation. I show the students, here's how I used it. Here's the prompt that I put in there. Here's the date. Here's the name of the AI generator that I use, so that I'm modeling it for them. And I'm upfront and honest, like, this PowerPoint I had AI make for me, and here's how I tweaked it, but the rest of it came straight from AI. So I think it's important for us to model it and be upfront and honest with our students as well. And now some time for questions and answers.
At the end of the semester, how do you feel like your students are using AI? Do you hear them using it in other classes? Like sort of what's the end result? Where does your class end? Where do your students end?
Yes. So when we have these open and honest discussions and we're doing these activities in class, they're talking about it all the time. They're talking about how this teacher won't let us use it. I heard so and so was accused of plagiarism. I'm using this other one. This other one's better. This one is now citing sources and it's not making up sources. And they're helping each other in those ways. They are feeling confident about using it and not afraid that they might be accidentally accused. They feel informed that if somebody were to talk to them and say, hey, I think you used it, that they could, defend themselves and say, this is what I did and this is how I used it. And see, this is where I pointed out how I used it. I was honest in how I was using it. And they recognize that it's definitely conversations and that it's changing all the time. And I mean, it's changing so fast. Even how I told them in the syllabus at the beginning of this semester how to cite things, that's already changed. So it's an ongoing conversation because it's quickly changing. But they are having conversations with each other. And there's a lot of stuff on social media about it. There's a lot of myths floating around about it. There's a lot of scare tactics being used. And then there's also a lot of, college doesn't mean anything now because, AI can just do everything for you. So your college degree won't mean a thing. So those conversations come up. And I think those are really important conversations to have. Those are worth talking about.
Melanie,
Yes.
realize that I was never good at citations in school, and physicists developed an entire programming language to do the citations for us. What
Mhm.
is the proper citation format?
I knew somebody was going to ask that. So let me see if I
Thank
can
you.
pull this up and share it.
I'm a
So you
plant.
can go
No, I'm
to whatever your citation style is, and they will have it spelled out for you. So MLA has it, MLA.org, and so does APA.org. But let me see if I can pull it up here with my, I'm going to stop sharing this and see if I can find it in my documents here.
My citation style is LaTeX, but I don't think anybody understands.
Let's see. I'm the worst at finding my screen share stuff.
While you're looking at that, are you getting papers at the end of the semester where you're like, this looks like it's totally AI generated and there's no work?
No, I don't get those. I have not had that problem. Because I even am very honest with them. I'll say, look, this is how I know that this is generated. I have even included 3 different versions of essays written to my prompt and along with the prompt and said, look, this is what it does. We talk about it. Look how we have a discussion. What makes this such a bad essay? Why would you want to turn in something that's this bad?
I did that last semester or one of the semesters in my online class where I put a paper up and I had them critique it. And I didn't tell them at first it was AI generated, but at the end I did. And there were a couple of students who realized it was, but there were a couple of students who thought it was really good because the grammar was so good. But it was really, when I pointed out all the things, it was a horrible essay. So
Exactly. And that's a great teaching opportunity to teach. Well, what is good writing? It's not just good grammar. It's, you know, things that you can imagine, they're just being descriptive, they're being specific, they have evidence, and it's not just, one generalization after another with some transitions thrown in between, like first, second, and finally, and to conclude.
right.
Right. All right. So can you see my screen? The
Yeah.
AI in text.
Yeah,
Does that show
thank
up?
you. I get the idea.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
there you go. It's basically you put the
Prompt,
Mhm.
source, website, date.
Yep. Yep. That's how you do it. That's a
Oh.
great question. Thanks. Anybody else?
And I will back up Melanie's use of like a honor pledge or a ethics statement on assignments. I do the same thing with my exams in physics. And I'm not naive enough to believe that solves a problem, but I have had more conversations with students about what authorized and unauthorized sources of help are ever since instituting that. So.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, I do, even in my online class, they talk about it a little bit at the beginning in a discussion board. I didn't do as much this semester, and most of them said, a couple said they use it. Most of them said maybe for editing, which actually I want to explore that a little bit more because I think that would be a good place. I did have students turn in an assignment and one or two of them really looked like they were AI generated. So I'm trying to get one of the students to contact me, and I was just gonna shoot some questions and just kind of say, hey, this doesn't exactly look like your work. So looks kind of a little AI adjacent or something. I don't know.
Mhm.
But I mean, there are times where I have a key. I mean, it was so plain that they used it. And
Yeah, especially when it, when it includes, well, yes, certainly. Like, right, well, you do this for me, and that prompts it answers you, well, yes, certainly.
well, and then every sentence is a list. AI likes
Yes,
to do lists
yes.
of
And you've
things.
got all these bullet points. Students don't know how to do bullet points.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
So
know this summer when I taught English 1B, I had one student who persisted in doing 3 assignments. They're 5 papers for the course, and the first 3 she used AI, and I had that discuss, and it was online, of course. So I just said, it's clear this is not your writing, and you didn't complete the required amount of quoting from the specific sources. So you're going to get a 0 on this paper, but please schedule an office hour with me and we'll go over this so that you don't make the same mistakes. Well, I had to say that 3 times. And then by the 4th time, she'd not been doing any of the required reading, of course. So she did not pass the class, but she did apologize. She did admit that she'd done it and that she'd had crises in her life and she was just running out of time, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, she was a kid who was taking a summer class from Berkeley. So it was so embarrassing for her. But, yeah, I hope it was a learning opportunity. But I didn't have any, I had one kid who was doing it on the discussion boards. And we did, we just worked through it. Like Lori said, hey, this doesn't look like you're writing it, or it doesn't seem like the kind of writing that's typical of somebody at your place in education. So
Right.
you're not citing, we're asking you to cite from the readings as you respond, and you didn't do that, and you didn't quite answer the question. So let me help you do that. And, he stumbled through and he did figure it out by the end. But, I think all of this just is making us we're just being much more student contact than we've had to
Yes.
be. And I think it's, I don't know, for me, it's invigorating. I wish
Yeah.
we didn't have to spend so much time on format, but it is kind of cool to teach a new tool. And so I don't know, I think we'll come out of this okay, but I know a lot of our faculty are not happy. They're very upset about Grammarly and students being able to just plug their papers in and get their text created, cleaned up. And I mean, I have one person who just told me, I will die on that hill. And it's like, you know what? I don't want to die on any hill. I just think we need to teach them, that this is, you need to have the guardrails on, and this is what we expect. And then you're going to be out of this class, and then you're on in your life. And so the tools that you've learned how to use, let's hope that they're useful. So Melanie, I just really applaud what you're doing. It's just, this is how we need to do it. So
Thank you.
thanks.
well,
Thanks.
I
I
agree
appreciate
with
that.
you too, Deb, because I mean, I have different feelings about it, and part of it, I just haven't taken the time to explore it more with my students. I mean, I've done a little bit in my face-to-face classes, but when I was in high school and college, there were times where I would write a paper and I would send it to my mom, who was a high school teacher, and or a friend, and like an older professional, and they would edit my essays for me. The difference is that most of the time they would either do it by hand so I could see it and I would have to type it in. And then while I was typing it in, I was trying to figure out what they did. But how often do we use tools like that? I mean, I have the Grammarly thing somehow is on mine, and even Microsoft Word now offers corrections.
Mhm.
I just am a little smarter with it than they are because I know a few things about writing. And I think in one of the, David, you'll know, one of the conversations, the person said, I tell my students to take responsibility for their learning. Was that you who
That
said
was
that?
me. Mhm.
Yeah, I really like that. And I
Yeah.
actually included that in one of the emails I sent to my, like, you have to take personal responsibility for your learning, you
Mhm.
know, on a video that I made and not use ChatGPT and then, but yeah, I mean, I've actually even thought, like, wouldn't it be easier, interesting to do a whole class, or, you know, which sounds like what you're doing, that is English and AI, you know, and different ways to use it. And I don't want them to cheat, but
I just think, Lori, we're all going to just have to learn how to preface our courses with AI literacy at the very
Yep,
beginning.
absolutely.
It's just like learning to
I
use a
agree.
dictionary. They need to know how to use the tool. So our faculty who don't want to learn this, it's frustrating because this is where we are. This is where the world is headed. And you
We
know,
had to do the same thing when Google
yeah,
happened, when
yeah,
Wikipedia happened. We had to
yes,
teach them literacy. We
yes,
had to teach them how to look at
yes,
references. We had to teach them
yes,
how to,
Yeah.
get a
yeah,
second source of information and cross check.
right,
And
right,
we're going through sort of the same things. It's just
yeah,
one of the cautions that makes this a little bit different than the past is that this is going so fast. I
yeah,
remember saying, "Oh, Wikipedia is going so fast. Google's going so
yeah,
fast." I've
right,
been through all that. This is going
yeah,
way faster.
yeah, sure it
Absolutely.
is.
This is
It
way
is.
faster.
And
It
even now,
sure is.
like, they know not to use Wikipedia. And even now, there are certain topics when it is so biased and so many people are going in and writing wrong information. And that's the other thing, is talking about bias with AI, because you
Right.
don't know what you're going to get.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So,
I'm just worried that internet blindness will kick back in. I feel like we were just starting to get over that idea that, well, just because it's on the internet, it's true. Right? That sort of that. Well, I Googled it
Mhm.
and saw that it was right. And I just worry that with the AIs, it's going to get entrenched again as this. Oh, well, the AI said it. Well, like ChatGPT
Right.
said it, so it must be right.
Yes. And that is a useful assignment to do with your class, is to, have it write something for you, and then everybody has to fact check,
Mhm.
right? You have to find, 2, 3 sources to support every fact that is there and make changes.
Mhm.
That's it's a great activity, a great
Mhm.
research activity. And then speaking of going back to Grammarly, so some students are being, flagged for, this doesn't sound like you're writing, because they do rely so heavily on Grammarly. So Grammarly can, take over their voice. So that's another thing that I've taught
Mhm.
students how to use Grammarly, because it will give you the options and it explains why you need to make that correction. It explains the rules. So they actually can learn things as they're using it. But if they just, have it do a blanket thing, they're not learning a thing,
Mhm.
right?
well, yeah, that's the problem. What I've noticed too is sometimes it will give you an option that's changing the meaning of the sentence. And it's been doing that. And I don't know if it's Microsoft Word or Grammarly or both. It's been doing that more and more. And I'm not quite sure what that's about. But I know someone who went through their master's, and they were an elementary school teacher, and did not like writing, but the master's was very writing heavy, and used Grammarly. And this was before it got better, AI. And she actually said that she learned a lot about writing, and by the end of her master's, her writing had gotten so much better on her own because she was paying attention
Mhm.
the changes it was making. And she
'Cause
probably
she
was
used
already
it
a
as a
decent writer.
tool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because she
Yeah.
used it
Using
as
it.
a tool.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. And, Grammarly, when it first came out, it had a lot of free features, and then it's gradually took away more and more things that you then had to pay for. So it's not as good in the free version at finding stuff as, like it's not good at fragments or run-ons at all.
Yeah.
But it's good at
That's my
capitalization and spelling.
that's my worry with some of these generative AI things too, is that right now they're free.
Right.
And you can pay, like I do the paid version of ChatGPT now to be able to do a lot of uploads and requests and things. But I just wonder, oh yeah, we'll just keep putting more and more stuff behind the paywall until
Mhm.
those that have learn faster and those that don't get
Exactly.
left behind.
Yeah.
Exactly. It definitely is going to become an equity issue. Absolutely. Right. And again, it's an equity issue now. I mean, that's why everybody needs to learn how to use the tool, because otherwise the world's just going to pass them by.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the other, because I'm thinking more and more. So I know some real estate agents who have their agents use ChatGPT to write their descriptions because they're not great writers. Now, like my neighbor is a real estate agent too, and she's kind of upset because she took a lot of time and to write things, and now anyone can come and do it. But if it saves them time, if they're not great writers, then that can help them. And with ChatGPT too, they can write up a long description and then put it in, because you can only have so many words that you can use, and put it in and say, cut this in half, and then it will give you something. So in a lot of fields, people are using it. And
Mhm.
these are people who could be making a lot of money. So
It's such an interesting, fascinating topic. It is amazing.
but we also people do need to learn some basic tools on their own, or basic writing concepts on their own. It's like in some ways they still need to learn some of the rules and then use the tools that can help them.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I found it a good opportunity to teach. I mean, they're now motivated to understand the grammar language and what goes into writing, so then they can appropriately prompt, right? So they can write some good queries, because we talk about, because I didn't get a good answer. Well, what did you put in it? Well, that was super vague.
Mhm.
It doesn't know what those terms are. You got to use, what are the terms in that field? Um,
Mhm.
so it's a rich place for discussion and learning, and especially, right there in our classrooms where we can be guiding them, and they can, right there on the spot, like, oh, this sounds ridiculous, or this is pretty good. Well, what did you put for your prompt? And you can see which students, are pretty, so already have some really strong critical thinking skills, and already are pretty practiced at using it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think what Deb said was really, hit the nail on the head. If it leads to student engagement, how can it be bad?
Yeah. So true.
Right? If we're just working with our students more and helping them critically think more, it's a
Yep.
win.
That is a good thing. Absolutely. Yeah. It's an opportunity. Turning those threats into opportunities.
Now I just have to do it. I'm afraid to use, I'm just afraid. So, but I think I'm doing a metacognitive research paper where they're not actually writing. I'm going to have them do something that we learned in another one of our sessions. So I might include some stuff in there, like about doing research and using AI, and have them really think through it and stuff. So we'll see. Could be a disaster, but we have to do it in online classes too. We can't just save it for face to
Yeah,
face.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I just had to be honest that I haven't
yeah.
tried this in online. Yeah. I'm only teaching face to face. So speaking of prompts, so I create prompts where they're going to have to give me evidence, proof of their writing process. So for example, they do an interview and they have to upload the recording of the interview. And then they write an essay where they incorporate the ideas from the interview with sources. And I also had them use Noodle tools, because that's where they upload all of their sources, and that's where they take their notes. So then I can see them engaging in the process as they go. And they're also writing a visual analysis, and it has to be something on campus. They take a picture of something on campus. AI is not going to know about that. So they have to analyze, so these are things that are personal and right.
I love that. I just love that.
What kind
So
of thing do you have them do? And what did you say? Noodle?
Noodle tools. It's available through the library databases. have your librarians give you you and your class a presentation about it. It's amazing. It'll
Okay.
actually make the works cited page for them, the references page for them. It gives them a place for them to write note cards. It shows them how to, where to quote it, how to summarize it, how to paraphrase it. And then they hit a button and it does an outline for them. And they can write their essay around that outline. It's a huge time saver.
It makes an outline. Okay.
Wow, I love it. The things we learn. When you talked about the thing about an object on campus, it just made me flash back to when my daughter was a freshman and her English class, that's exactly what the instructor did. He had them go to the art gallery that was there on campus, and they had to just pick a piece of artwork, and then they had to do the 3-part kind of writing that you do for a piece of art. So describing the piece in detail, and then the artist's vision or whatever that portion was, and then an analysis of it. So it was just a brilliant assignment because you can't plagiarize anything, right? It has to be something that you're applying yourself specifically to. And then it just shows you, how writing is symbol making, and we're all just figuring out how to use our symbols and to communicate those experiences. So I just feel like, between STEM and us, there's still we have more in common than we don't, it's just a different set of symbols. But just teaching students to recognize that is pretty great. So
Absolutely.
Well, I will look at that tool. I had my students last semester, my face-to-face, do note cards, really old-fashioned, really talk to them about annotating. And I probably could have, I probably should have then let them stick it in and kind of help them with the summary, but really talk to them about annotating. And their research papers were actually so much better. Because I talked to them about doing context and what does that look like. So I went a little old-fashioned, but their papers were much, much better at the end. And I could tell they had done the work. There's no way AI could have, maybe if they had prompted it really well, could have, but probably not. And they were interesting too, so not an AI tool, kind of going a little backwards, but I feel like we still have to break things down quite a bit. And even with AI, probably have to continue really breaking things down, or they're just going to put in the prompt and then that's it. So,
Right.
anyhow.
Yeah, these are great comments, great insights.
Well, thank you for taking the time to do this. I really
I do
appreciate
need
it.
to get going. Melanie,
Yeah, me
excellent.
too.
Thank you so much. I
Yeah,
appreciate
great.
I appreciate
Yeah.
all being here and the ideas you shared too. Thanks so much. Have a great, and let's chat anytime.
Oh yeah, Susie just put up that the recordings on YouTube, and then I had stuck up at the very beginning a little survey. Even if you've done it, if you have more thoughts, Melanie, if you have thoughts, go and take it. It's anonymous. You can take it as many times as you want.
Okay.
And it's just to help me plan more professional development. And all the videos are going to be on the Fresno City College professional development. So anyhow,
Fabulous. Thank you. Bye,
Bye.
everybody.
Thank you.